welcome to Ready Steady Freefrom. This week we're going to be using the mincemeat from last week and making mince pies 2 ways. So let's get cooking. Okay, so the recipe we are using today is from Helmsley Helmsley. It's available on Pinterest. And this is a pastry recipe that is actually for mince pies that they've used it for, but it is a basic pastry recipe. It's very similar to the cinnamon rolls recipe that we had in a previous video. So in here we've got 1 medium egg, and then to it we are going to add 200 grams of ground almonds. So it's about 2 cups. So it's just under 2 cups. Then we want a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. Okay, and then we're going for a 1/4 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. Then 3/4 of a teaspoon of honey. So we're going to kind of guess that. There we go. Then we want 15 grams of butter at room temperature. You could substitute coconut oil for this if you wanted to. Now you can do this in the food processor if you want to, or you can just mix it in the bowl by itself, that's fine. So I'm just going to break this butter up into the flour first. Could do this with your hands if you wanted to. To be honest, we are probably going to be popping our hands into it to get it to come together, because as you can see it's a very dry mix. We've only got the egg, the butter and the honey to kind of moisten it up. There's not a lot of moisture for the amount of almonds that we've got. As always, it's either ground almonds or almond flour, okay, wherever you are in the country, whatever you can get hold of, so make it work for you. So there we have a nice rolled piece of pastry. What we're going to do is we're going to cut it in half. So cut it in half, and what I'm going to do is now put this in the fridge, because we're going to use half for the bottoms and half for the tops of the mince pies. But we're going to put it in the fridge just to let it harden up a little bit, makes it easier to handle. The tray I'm using for this is a shallow bun tray, so a tart tray, whatever you want to call it. So it's quite small discs that you'd make jam tarts in, or little tarts, and it's quite shallow. It's probably about 1 centimetre deep, probably just over 1/4 inch deep. So that's the tray, and it's nice and non-stick, so we don't need to worry about doing anything with this. And then what we're going to do is we are going to roll out the pastry in between the sheets of greaseproof, in between the parchment paper, okay? So I've just cut out 2 sheets, and we're going to have it in the middle and roll it out. Then we're going to cut, and then we're going to put it into the baking tray. Look, I just took some banana muffins out of the oven. I used some dehydrated bananas and put them on the top, so they look fab. They're all sprinkled with cinnamon. These are my snacks for the week. Okay, so I've got half of the mixture out, and I've left the other half in the fridge. So we're going to roll this out, and we're probably going for about 2 or 3 mil thick. Okay. Now this mix doesn't look like it's going to make very many, but we don't want to make it too thin. There we go. Okay, so we're going to now cut out little rings. So I'm just going to unpeel them from the sheet. So we just go underneath. We've done this in a previous video. So you're going underneath the baking parchment, and you're lifting up, putting your fingers underneath it, so you're just kind of scooping it. Go under and scoop it, okay? And then you can see there, that's quite thick. That's probably about 4 mil, maybe a bit more. So we'll go with it and see how it is. So we're going to pop it into this tray and just push it in, push it down, and you'll see it kind of sinks in. So you just push it in around the edges. It naturally just pushes it down and in. Okay, that is quite a thick one, but it means also that it'll hold together well. So let's see how we get on with the rest. Okay, so we've got this leftover pastry. We're going to recombine it and re-roll it. So we re-roll again. And as with this pastry, there is no overworking it because there's no gluten in it. There we go. So we've got 11 out of that, and if I'd have rolled them all consistently thinner, then I think we'd have definitely got 12. Okay, so I'm going to add this to the mix that's in the fridge. So what we're going to do now is we are going to part bake these in the oven. We don't need to put any baking beans on them or anything. They're not going to be rising up or having any bubbles. So we're just going to part cook them through, okay? We're putting them in the oven, actually. The temperatures for the oven you're looking at are fan 170, 340 Fahrenheit, gas mark 3. And we're going for about 5 minutes, okay? In the recipe, I've just seen that it says fan 170, 340F and gas mark 3. But that doesn't make any sense because gas mark 3 is 325 Fahrenheit and fan 170 on Celsius is normal 190. But if I look at my converter, gas mark 3 is 170 and then fan is 20 degrees lower than that, which is 150. So I'm going with 150 because I don't want to risk anything here. I don't want to burn those almonds. It seems quite high to be 170 for almonds, so I'm going for 150. Right, so we're taking these out in the oven after 5 minutes. I've had them in at 150, all right? Now you can see, I don't know if you can just see on the edges of those, they've just gone slightly golden brown. Well, quite golden brown actually, and I wouldn't want them any more done than that. So yeah, be careful with your oven temperatures. The recipe is a bit misleading. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pop in the mincemeat that we made last week. Remember this? Now these are kind of bite size. You could make a big flan of this, you know, like I said last week. With the mincemeat, you could just make it as big or as small as you want. Now it's interesting, I haven't touched this mincemeat since we made it last week, and it's kind of solidified, all right? Now I didn't add any extra liquid to this. I didn't add any apple juice or anything like that. I'm just going to pop it in as it is, because it will warm up in the oven as well. So I'm popping in there probably about a tablespoonful. Okay, so we've filled all of the cases now, and I've just kind of pushed them down, and we want to make sure that they're away from the edges because we want the pastry that we're going to put on top of them to kind of come to the edges. We're kind of hoping that this isn't going to overflow and spill out. It's not really going to be in the oven long enough because it's only going back in for 10 minutes. So just kind of squidge them down, tidy them up, and you can see this one's moving, so you can see it's not stuck, so we don't tend to have that problem. Now it's really up to you about how much mincemeat you put in here. If you absolutely love it, then by all means pile it in. I do like a nice helping. I kind of like an equal balance, I think, between pastry and mincemeat. Oh, tastes great. Okay, so now we're going to make the lids. So I just got the mixture out of the fridge, and we're going to roll it out just like we did before. Right, so the cutter that we're going to use is going to be the same cutter that we used before. So we're going to cut out, I'm just going to do the first one. Lift it off, and we're going to place it over the top. Now the reason we've chosen the same size is because we want it to fit over the filling, all right, and so it's slightly bigger. If you want to go for a small one, you could go for a small one and just have it sit on the top and have it look pretty, or you could have like a star shape, so you could just have that and have it kind of sitting there like a bit of an open pie, or you could have a little star on the top of it. You could even leave it just open like that. So it's really up to you about how you want your mince pies to look, all right? So I'm going for a full cover because that's what I like. That's my traditional mince pie, but it's really up to you what else you want to go for. So with that one, I've just pressed it down around the edges. It's quite tricky because the bottom isn't sticky because it's already part cooked. So we just want to kind of seal it like it's like a little spaceship. Okay, and then I'm going to poke a couple of holes in it, just for looks more than anything, because for me a traditional mince pie has holes in it like that. Okay, so now I'm going to cover the rest. Now at the beginning of the video I said to you about mince pies two ways. Now the second way that you could do this is like a roll up. So you know the cinnamon rolls video that I did much earlier on? You do the same principle. So you could do the cinnamon rolls recipe, but with the mincemeat instead. You would probably need to loosen the mincemeat up with some apple juice, or you could use alcohol if you wanted to, or even just water, just to loosen it up a bit so you could spread it across the mix. And so you would sprinkle it or spread it across this, and then you would roll it up and then slice it just like the cinnamon rolls to be able to make a mince pie pinwheel, if you like. So that's the second way that you could do that, in order to be able to have a different kind of mince pie, do something different this Christmas. Okay, so I'm going to attempt a tiny pinwheel here. Right, so we're going to roll it. I'm not sure if this is going to work because it's so tiny. There we go. It's like a little sausage roll. Okay, so in there, got all kind of rolled up. You can't see the layers. I'm sure if I cut it in half, you can see it better that side. So if I cut it in half, you probably see the layers better, but it's so tiny, I'm just going to leave it as it is. But that's just a little example of what you could do on a bigger scale, and then you could chop it up. So I'm just going to pop that in there like that. Right, so they're going to go back in the oven, same temperature. I'm going to go for 150 on a fan, and that's going in for 10 minutes. Right, so I've just taken them out of the oven. I put them in for 10 minutes, and then I put them on for another 3 minutes. So you can see they look lovely, nice and golden brown. So we're just going to leave them for a couple of minutes just to cool off a tad, so mostly so I don't burn my fingers, but cool off a tad, and then we'll pop them onto the cooling rack and let them cool. So here we are a few minutes later, and they've cooled down a little bit, and I've got the little kind of roll here, the mincemeat roll, and a little bit of the filling that's kind of sneaking out. And I'm going to chop that in half. I'm going to chop that in half so that we can just have a look at the inside to see what it looks like. It really is quite a novel idea to do it like this. And it's just bite-sized as well. So you can see it's quite sturdy, even though we rolled it quite thin and it was like a bit of leftovers. So you can just seeing there the lovely juiciness of that mincemeat all in there. And you can't really see the roll of the pastry, but it is in there. Just move that there, there we go. So you can see that little twist of the pastry up there and all that filling, okay? So we are going to eat this and see what it tastes like. Oh. It's like Christmas in my mouth. Oh my goodness. So flipping good. Okay, so with the pinwheel, you get a lot of mincemeat and not very much pastry. So not my favourite way of having a mince pie, but you get flooded in your mouth with all that, with the raisins and sultanas and the juiciness, the apple and the citrus and the spices. It all comes in, and because it's lovely and warm, oh, it's just decadent is the word. So pinwheel's definitely a winner if you like nice big chunk of mincemeat filling. Now with the mince pies, I have to say that some of them have held together really well and they're all stuck, but others, there's a couple, just a couple that I didn't press down enough, and so the lids are loose. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat this one tonight. The other one that I've got, well, I'll just freeze it. But so yeah, make sure you press them down well. So let's do a cheeky taste test of this mince pie. Oh, mince pies. Oh yeah. So there's lots more pastry to this one. Oh, and it's delicious. I love pastry. So for me, this is the best. So it's a lovely balance of mixture and pastry. It's just delicious, absolutely delicious. No more missing out on mince pies. I started making my own mince pies a couple of years ago because I just felt grieved of my mince pies. So yeah, this is Christmas in the UK for sure. Mince pies. You can have them on their own with ice cream, hot, cold, with custard, if you can figure out how to make a custard, which I will be doing very soon because I'm really craving it and I keep talking about it. You could have it with coconut cream. Yeah, anything you absolutely love, have it with it, or just have it on its own with a cuppa. I don't know if all these are going to make it to Christmas. Okay, so make them, love them, like, comment, share, and enjoy your mince pies. See you next time in the kitchen.